All right, hey nerds. So I'm gonna criticize one of my favorite people to criticize who I haven't talked about in a while, James Lindsay, famous mangler of philosophy and former mathematician who's just a pseudo intellectual, says all kinds of bullshit about philosophy that he cherry picks and presents out of context in order to present the person as offering the opposite opinion of what they actually do in the same paragraph of the same book often. But anyway, he's doing his usual bullshit here, in which he talks about the claim that Marxism is woke and wokeness is just identity Marxism, which is basically like identity politics plus Marxism, but in reality, it's just politics. But anyway, let's get into this clip here.
Out of neo-Marxism, coming out of the 60s and going into the early.
Oh, yeah, so just right there, too. So neo-Marxism, he often means like some people who other philosophers call cultural Marxists, like the critical theorists in the Frankfurt School, who were not ideological Marxists at all, but they wrote philosophically about subjects like the aesthetics and culture of Marxism that remained in the culture after the end of Marxist dystopias like Stalinist Russia, for example. And so these are not actually Marxists, and they have nothing to do with wokeness. They don't talk about identity politics at all. None of these critical theorists do. I've done series on some of their books so far. I've been doing one on Habermas. I wrote more about Habermas, and there's Adorno and Horkheimer I need to get into more, but I've talked about Adorno. And anyway, these are thinkers who are extremely different from Marx and Marxists. They don't, or they didn't rather, actually practice Marxism or believe in Marxism or call themselves Marxist, or maybe they sounded like Marxism because they wrote about Marx's opinions from a philosophical point. But a lot of conservatives like James Lindsay seem to just think that writing about Marx makes you a Marxist, which is extremely fucking dumb.
Early 70s, we have the birth of a new phenomenon out of neo-Marxism coming
Listen to this like epic, uplifting music too. Oh no, the Marxism. Let's talk about this dawn of the new age of identity Marxism.
out of the 60s and going into the early 70s, we have the birth of a new phenomenon in Marxism that I call not cultural Marxism, but identity Marxism, where the Marxism is now going to be done across lines of stratification in identity factors like race, sex, sexuality, gender,
Oh no.
fat status, disability status, and that, as Judith Butler had it, that exasperated, etc., of more identity categories that you have to list every time in all their papers. Out of neo-Marxism.
That's just dumb. Okay, for one thing, all of those like woke categories they're just fucking wokeness, man. They have nothing at all whatsoever to do with Marxism. And you mentioned Judith Butler there. She's like a radical third wave feminist. She is not an identity Marxist at all. She doesn't practice Marxism or advocate for Marxism. She's like a woke feminist. There are feminists who are not woke, but she's almost undeniably a woke feminist, although I haven't actually looked into her work that much. But I probably will, because Slavoj Žižek, my favorite Hegelian slash Lacanian slash Marxist philosopher, has talked about it before, so I'll probably get into his writing about her. But anyway, the point is that she's not a Marxist at all. She's not any kind of Marxist. She's not an identity Marxist. She's not a cultural Marxist. She's not a neo-Marxist. She's not any kind of Marxist. She's just woke. Woke people are woke, and they have nothing to do with Marxism. And Marx and Marxists don't really generally write about wokeness. In fact, as I've often said before, their philosophy is entirely foundationalist, and like organizing people based on categories of oppression doesn't make it Marxism. Like conservatives often say rich people are oppressed. That doesn't mean that it's Marxism. Any ideology with any oppressed class is Marxism. No, Marxism is politics, or sorry, Marxism. Yeah, Marxism is politics, and wokeness is just people being obsessed with gender categories. They're woke. They're woke people. They're not Marxists. Marxism is not wokeness. Wokeness is not DEI, or wokeism is this stupid word that James Lindsay invented. Wokeness is not Marxism, and Marxism is not wokeness. As fucking almost always, James Lindsay is a pseudo-intellectual